Chapter 1. The Counterfeit Test. The $20 bill felt wrong the moment he placed it in my palm. I'd been waitressing at Dante's for 3 years, long enough to know the difference between worn currency and something that had never seen the inside of a real wallet. The texture was too smooth, the colors slightly off under the dim lighting of the restaurant. But it was the way he watched me, dark eyes tracking my every movement like a predator assessing prey, that made my pulse quicken. "Is there a problem?" His voice was low, accented with something European I couldn't quite place. Russian, maybe, or Italian. I looked down at the bill again, then back at him. He sat alone in the corner booth, the one we saved for VIPs, even though management never explained what made someone important enough to deserve it. He wore a black suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent, and his hands resting casually on the table bore scars that told stories I didn't want to imagine. "You tell me." I placed the bill back on the table between us, sliding it across the polished wood with one finger. Should there be? Something flickered in his expression. Surprise, maybe, or amusement. The restaurant had gone quiet, though I hadn't noticed when. The usual clatter of dishes and murmur of conversation had faded into background static. In my peripheral vision, I saw Marco, one of the line cooks, frozen in the kitchen doorway, his face pale. "Most people would have just taken it," the man said, leaning back in his seat. "Put it in their apron, gone about their night. Most people don't have to explain to their landlord why their rent bounced." I kept my voice steady, even though my hands wanted to shake, so I'm careful about what I accept. He smiled then, slow and dangerous. "What's your name?" "Sophia. Sophia." He rolled my name around in his mouth like he was tasting it. "Do you know who I am? Should I?" "Probably not." He pulled a real bill from his wallet. $100 this time, and placed it on the table. "Keep the change, Sophia, and the counterfeit. Consider it a gift." "I don't want it. I insist." He stood, towering over me at well over 6 feet. Up close, I could see the detail of him, the sharp line of his jaw, the small scar bisecting his left eyebrow, the way his shirt collar couldn't quite hide what looked like a tattoo creeping up his neck. "You passed my test. Very few people do." "What kind of test requires fake money?" "The kind that tells me whether someone can be trusted." He buttoned his suit jacket with precise movements. "Or bought." Before I could respond, he was moving toward the exit, flanked by 2 men I hadn't even noticed entering. They materialized from the shadows like ghosts, both built like tanks and wearing matching expressions of cold indifference. "Wait," I called out, though I didn't know why. "You didn't tell me your name." He paused at the door, looking back over his shoulder. "Alexander Volkov." The name hit me like a physical blow. Even I, who avoided the news and kept my head down, had heard that name whispered in the streets of Brighton Beach. Alexander Volkov, the Bratva king who'd consolidated power over half of Brooklyn's underworld in less than 5 years. The man who made people disappear. The man whose word was law in certain neighborhoods where the police didn't dare patrol after dark. "You look like you've seen a ghost," he said, that dangerous smile returning. "I think I have." He laughed, a sound that was somehow both warm and terrifying. "I'll see you again, Sophia. Soon." Then he was gone, leaving me standing in the middle of the restaurant with a counterfeit 20 in one hand and a $100 bill in the other, wondering what I'd just invited into my life. Marco materialized at my elbow the moment the door closed. "Are you insane? Do you have any idea what you just did?" I gave him back his fake money. What was I supposed to do? "Take it, smile, thank him." Marco grabbed my arm, his fingers digging in hard enough to leave marks. "Jesus, Sophia, that was Alexander Volkov. People who disrespect him end up in the East River." He seemed fine with it. That's what scares me. Marco released me, running both hands through his hair. Men like that don't just let things go. If he was fine with it, that means he wants something from you. I looked down at the $100 bill, still crisp and real in my palm. In the center of the counterfeit 20, someone had written in tiny letters, "You interested me. Expect consequences." My blood ran cold. "What does it say?" Marco tried to peer over my shoulder, but I crumpled both bills in my fist. "Nothing. Just a serial number." The lie tasted bitter, but some instinct told me to keep this to myself. "I'm taking my break." I didn't wait for his response. I pushed through the kitchen doors into the alley behind the restaurant, gulping down lungfuls of cold October air. My hands were shaking now, adrenaline finally catching up with confusion. Expect consequences. What kind of consequences? And why did some traitorous part of me feel thrilled rather than terrified? I was still standing there, trying to steady my breathing, when I heard the footsteps. Heavy, deliberate, multiple sets. Sophia Russo? A voice emerged from the darkness, unfamiliar and cold. I spun around, pressing my back against the brick wall. 3 men stood in the alley's entrance, blocking my path back inside. They weren't Volkov's men. I'd seen his guards, remembered their faces. These men were different. Harder, meaner. Who's asking? The one in front smiled, revealing a gold tooth. Someone who's very interested in your conversation with Mr. Volkov. Someone who wants to know what he said to you. What he gave you. He didn't give me anything. We'll see about that. Gold Tooth stepped closer, and I saw the knife in his hand, blade catching the dim light from the street. Now, you can make this easy, or you can make it very difficult. But either way, you're coming with us. I opened my mouth to scream, but a hand clamped over it from behind. A 4th man, when had he gotten behind me, dragged me backward, his arm like an iron bar across my chest. This was it. This was how I died. In a dirty alley behind a restaurant, all because I'd been too proud to take a fake $20 bill from a mobster. Then the world exploded. Gunshots cracked through the air, loud enough to make my ears ring. The man holding me jerked, his grip loosening, and I felt something warm and wet spray across the back of my neck. I fell forward onto my hands and knees, gasping, as chaos erupted around me. More shots, shouting in Russian, the sound of bodies hitting pavement. When the noise stopped, I looked up through my hair to see Alexander Volkov standing in the alley, a gun held loosely in his right hand. His 2 guards flanked him, their own weapons drawn. At his feet lay Gold Tooth and his companions, none of them moving. Sophia. My name was soft on his lips, almost gentle. He crouched down to my level, close enough that I could smell his cologne, something dark and expensive. Are you hurt? I couldn't speak, couldn't move, could only stare at the bodies and wonder if this was real or if I'd passed out and this was some kind of nightmare. Look at me, he commanded, and without thinking, I obeyed. His eyes were impossibly dark, depthless. Did they hurt you? No. My voice came out as a whisper. You killed them. Yes. No apology, no explanation, just simple fact. Why? He reached out slowly, giving me time to flinch away, but I didn't. Couldn't. His fingers were gentle as they tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, the same hand that had just taken 3 lives. Because, Alexander Volkov said, you're mine now. Chapter 2. Blood on his hands, questions on mine. I should have run. That's what any sane person would have done when a man casually admits to murder while his victims, the blood pools around your knees. But sanity had apparently left the building the moment I'd handed back that counterfeit bill, because instead of running, I let Alexander Volkov help me to my feet. His hands were steady, clinical, almost. He brushed dirt from my apron with the same efficiency he'd shown loading his gun back into a holster I hadn't noticed beneath his jacket. We need to leave. His guards were already moving, one speaking rapid Russian into a phone while the other dragged the first body toward a black SUV that had materialized at the alley's mouth. Now, Sophia. I'm not going anywhere with you. The words sounded braver than I felt. Those men are dead. You killed them. I need to call the police. Alexander's laugh was soft and humorless. And tell them what? That the Volkov Bratva eliminated members of the Marchetti family who were attempting to kidnap you? That you witnessed a mob execution? He stepped closer, and I caught the scent of gunpowder mixing with his cologne. The police won't save you, Solnishko. They'll use you as bait, then leave you exposed when the Marchettis come for revenge. The who? The Italian family that controls the other half of Brooklyn. The family that's been testing my territory for months. He glanced at his watch. Expensive. Swiss. Probably cost more than my car. The family that now knows you're connected to me. Which means you have approximately 10 minutes before every soldier they have is searching for the waitress who spoke with Alexander Volkov. I'm not connected to you. I don't even know you. That stopped mattering the moment I sat in your section. His voice hardened. In my world, proximity is connection. Association is alliance. You stood there and spoke to me like an equal, and everyone in that restaurant saw it. The Marchettis saw it. They'll assume you mean something to me. And do I? The question escaped before I could stop it. Something flickered across his face too quick to read. Not yet, but you will, if you want to survive the next 24 hours. Behind him, his guards had finished loading the bodies. The alley looked almost normal now, if you didn't notice the dark stains on the concrete or the bullet holes in the brick wall. How many times had they done this? How many people had disappeared into black SUVs, never to be seen again? I can't just leave, I said, grasping at normal, at routine, at anything that made sense. My shift isn't over. Marco will worry. My roommate expects me home by midnight. Your shift ended the moment those men entered this alley. Alexander pulled out his phone, typed something with his thumbs. Your manager will receive a generous donation for your absence. Your roommate will receive a text from your number saying you're spending the night with a friend. And Marco. He paused, dark eyes finding mine. Marco already knows you're not coming back inside. He saw what happened. He's smart enough not to ask questions. You have my phone? He held it up, my battered iPhone in its cracked pink case. One of my men retrieved it from your locker, along with your jacket, your bag, your keys, everything you'll need. The casual invasion of my privacy should have terrified me. Instead, I felt something else. A weird sense of inevitability, like I'd been heading toward this moment since the second I'd spotted that counterfeit bill. Where are you taking me? Somewhere safe. He gestured toward the SUV. Come. We've been standing here too long. I looked back at the restaurant's rear entrance, at the strip of fluorescent light spilling from the kitchen. Inside, there were dishes to wash and tables to clear, and a life that made sense, even if it was boring and broke. Out here, there were bodies and guns, and a man whose very name made hardened criminals nervous. The choice should have been obvious. If I go with you, I said slowly. What happens? You live. And if I don't? Alexander's expression didn't change. The Marchettis are very creative with their revenge. I've seen what they do to people they perceive as traitors or informants. It takes days, sometimes weeks. He stepped closer, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact. I won't let that happen to you, Sophia, but only if you trust me. Trust. I laughed, bitter and sharp. You want me to trust a man who just killed 3 people in front of me? I want you to trust a man who just saved your life. His hand came up, fingers catching my chin, tilting my face into the light. His touch was surprisingly gentle. I know what you think of me, of men like me. You're not wrong, but I protect what's mine. Solnishko. Always. There's that word again. What does it mean? Little Sunday. His thumb brushed across my lower lip, and heat flooded through me, inappropriate, unwanted, undeniable. You burned bright in that restaurant, defiant, honest, unafraid. His voice dropped lower. I couldn't look away. A car horn blared from the street, shattering the moment. Alexander's guards tensed, hands moving to their weapons, and suddenly the romantic tension evaporated into cold reality. Time's up, Alexander said, releasing me. Choose now, Sophia, my protection or your pride. I thought of my apartment, 3rd floor, broken elevator, rent always late. I thought of my student loans, my dead-end job, my careful, small life. I thought of the way Alexander had looked at me in the restaurant, like I was something precious and dangerous and worth testing. I thought of the alternative, running, hiding, waiting for men with gold teeth to find me in another alley. One night, I said. I'll stay one night, until this blows over. Then I go back to my life. Alexander's smile was slow and knowing. Of course. One night. He was lying. I could hear it in his voice, see it in the way his eyes crinkled at the corners. One night would become 2, then 3, then get in the car, Sophia. I got in the car. The SUV's interior smelled like leather and gun oil. I sat in the back seat with Alexander while his guards took the front, neither of them speaking as we pulled out of the alley and merged into Brooklyn traffic. Through the tinted windows, the city looked different, darker, more predatory. Every shadow could hide a threat. Every car could be following us. Where are we going? I asked as we crossed the Brooklyn Bridge, Manhattan's skyline glittering ahead. My home. Alexander was scrolling through his phone, frowning at something on the screen. The penthouse. It's the most secure location I control. You live in Manhattan? I live in several places. But yes, the penthouse is my primary residence. He glanced up. You'll have your own room, your own bathroom, anything you need. What I need is to not be kidnapped by the Russian mob. You're not kidnapped. You're under my protection. There's a difference. Is there? I twisted in my seat to face him fully. Because from where I'm sitting, I didn't have much choice. You always have choices, Sophia. You just don't like the alternatives. His phone buzzed, and his expression darkened. Excuse me, I need to take this. He spoke in rapid Russian, his voice cold and clipped. I didn't understand the words, but I understood the tone. Someone had made a mistake, and they were being informed of exactly how badly they'd fucked up. When he ended the call, his jaw was tight. Problem? I asked. The Marchettis are moving faster than I anticipated. They've put a price on you, $50,000 for information leading to your location, double that for your delivery. My stomach dropped. $100,000? For me? For leverage against me. He pocketed his phone. They think you're my weakness now. They'll use you to draw me out, force my hand in negotiations. His eyes found mine, hard and assessing. Are you my weakness, Sophia? The question hung between us, heavy with implication. I don't even know you, I said. How could I be? Time will tell. He looked away, out at the city lights. But for now, you need to understand something. Men will come for you. They'll offer you money, freedom, safe passage home. They'll tell you I'm the villain, that they're your salvation. He turned back, and his expression was carved from ice. If you believe them, if you go with them, you will die. Not quickly, not cleanly, and I won't be able to save you. You're trying to scare me. I'm trying to keep you alive. He leaned forward, eliminating the space between us. The Marchettis don't bluff. They don't forgive. If they think you betrayed their attempt to use you against me, they'll make an example. Do you understand? I understood. God help me, I understood perfectly. What do you want from me? My voice came out small, frightened. Really want? Alexander studied me for a long moment, his dark eyes searching my face. When he spoke, his voice was soft, almost gentle. I want you to trust me, Sophia, even when it doesn't make sense, even when you're terrified. His hand covered mine on the seat between us, warm and solid. Can you do that? The SUV pulled up to a high-rise in Tribeca, all glass and steel and money. A doorman rushed to open Alexander's door, carefully not looking at me or the guards, or the suspicious bulges beneath expensive suit jackets. Welcome home, Mr. Volkov, the doorman said in accented English. Alexander stepped out, then turned back to offer me his hand. Through the windshield, I could see the building's lobby all marble and gold, the kind of place where people like me didn't belong. Sophia, he said patiently. Your hand. I took it. His fingers closed around mine, strong and sure, and I let him pull me from the car into a new world where counterfeit bills were tests, and trust was currency, and the price of my life was $100,000. Don't let go, Alexander murmured as we entered the lobby. No matter what happens next, don't let go. I didn't. Chapter 3. When he counted my scars. The elevator to Alexander's penthouse required a key and a fingerprint scan. Security cameras tracked our ascent through 40 floors of luxury condominiums, and I wondered if anyone watching the feeds thought I looked like a girl being led to slaughter. In my stained apron and non-slip shoes, surrounded by men in $1,000 suits, I'd never felt more out of place. You're safe here, Alexander said, as if reading my thoughts. He still held my hand, his grip firm but not painful. 40 armed men guard this building at all times. Every entrance and exit is monitored. No one enters without my permission. Sounds like a prison, or a fortress. The elevator doors opened directly into his penthouse, a sprawling space of floor-to-ceiling windows and dark hardwood and furniture that probably cost more than my entire existence, depending on your perspective. I stepped into the foyer, pulling my hand free. The view stopped me cold. Manhattan spread out below us like a carpet of stars, the city breathing and pulsing with life. From up here, it all looked beautiful, clean. You couldn't see the blood in the alleys or the fear in people's eyes when certain names were mentioned. Your room is this way. Alexander shrugged out of his jacket, revealing a shoulder holster and the gun nestled against his ribs. He saw me staring. Does it bother you? The weapon? Should it? Most women would be uncomfortable. Most women probably haven't watched you kill 3 men. I followed him down a hallway lined with abstract art originals. I assumed, not prints. Does it ever bother you? The killing? He paused at a door, his hand on the knob. Yes. The honesty surprised me. Yes? I'm not a sociopath, Sophia. I know what I am. What I do. He pushed the door open, revealing a bedroom that could have fit my entire apartment inside it. King-sized bed, sitting area, ensuite bathroom visible through another doorway. But I'd rather and carry that weight than watch innocent people suffer because I hesitated. Am I innocent? The question came out softer than I intended. Or did I become guilty the moment I sat at your table? Alexander moved closer, crowding into my space. Up close, I could see the fine lines around his eyes, the silver threading through his dark hair. He was older than I'd first thought, mid-30s. Maybe, but he wore it well. Dangerously well. You're innocent, he said quietly. That's why you're here. I don't understand. You will. He stepped back, breaking the spell. There are clothes in the closet new, your size. My people are efficient. Toiletries in the bathroom, food in the kitchen whenever you're hungry. He gestured to a sleek panel on the wall. If you need anything, press the button. Someone will come. Someone. Not you? I have work to attend to, a war to prepare for. His expression hardened. The Marchettis will retaliate for tonight. They'll hit my businesses, my shipments, my men. I need to ensure they hit nothing that matters. And I matter? I hated how hopeful the question sounded. Alexander's smile was slow and dangerous. More than you know, Solnishko. He moved toward the door, then paused. Don't try to leave. For your own safety. Is that a threat? A promise. He looked back over his shoulder. Sleep. Tomorrow we'll discuss what happens next. Then he was gone, and I was alone in a stranger's penthouse, wearing a dead man's blood and wondering how my life had become a mob movie in the space of 3 hours. I didn't sleep. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw a gold tooth falling, saw the spray of blood, heard the crack of gunshots echoing in the alley. I'd scrubbed myself raw in the shower using products that cost more than my weekly paycheck, but I could still feel the weight of violence on my skin. Around 3 a.m., I gave up and wandered out of the bedroom. The penthouse was silent, dimly lit by the city glow through the round windows. I expected guards, cameras, some sign of the security Alexander had promised. Instead, I found him. He sat in a leather chair near the windows, a laptop open on the table beside him, and a glass of amber liquid in his hand. He'd changed into dark slacks and a white shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows. Even in the half-light, I could see the tattoos covering his forearms, Cyrillic script, and Orthodox crosses and symbols I didn't recognize. Can't sleep? He asked without looking up. How did you know I was here? I always know. He gestured to the chair across from him. Sit. Keep me company while I work. I shouldn't have. Should have gone back to my room, locked the door, maintained distance between myself and this man who killed as casually as breathing. But something drew me forward, curiosity or stupidity, or that traitorous spark of attraction I'd felt in the alley. Saturday. What are you working on? I asked, trying to see his laptop screen. Logistics. Moving shipments. Relocating assets. Preparing for retaliation. He took a sip of his drink. Boring details of a business you don't want to understand. Try me. He looked at me then. Really looked, his dark eyes assessing. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? Fear, tears, demands to go home. He set down his glass. Instead, you're here, asking about my work, looking at me like you're trying to solve a puzzle. Maybe I am. I curled up in the chair, tucking my bare feet beneath me. The clothes he'd provided fit perfectly soft leggings and an oversized sweater that smelled like expensive detergent. You said I passed your test. What test was that, really? Integrity. He closed his laptop. I've spent years building an empire on fear and reputation. Everyone wants something from me. Money, power, protection. They'll lie, cheat, steal to get it. His gaze held mine. But you gave back my fake money. You didn't care who I was or what I could do for you. You just wanted honesty. Is that so rare in your world? Rarer than gold. He stood, moving to refill his glass from a decanter on the bar. Drink? I shouldn't. You should. He poured 2 fingers of whiskey into a second glass. It'll help you sleep. I accepted the glass, our fingers brushing. The touch sent electricity up my arm, inappropriate given the circumstances, but undeniable. I wondered if he felt it too, or if I was just another problem to be managed in his complicated life. Why do you do this? I asked, sipping the whiskey. It burned going down, smooth and expensive. The bratva, the violence, all of it? You're clearly educated, intelligent. You could do anything. I do what I was born to do. He returned to his chair, settling back with the ease of a predator at rest. My father ran the Volkov organization before me, his father before him. Violence is my inheritance, Sophia, the family business. That's sad. He laughed, genuinely surprised. Sad. Not having a choice, being locked into a life because of your last name. I met his eyes. I know something about that, about family expectations and limited options. Tell me. So I did. I told him about my parents, immigrants from Sicily, who'd sacrificed everything to give me opportunities they never had. About their disappointment when I dropped out of medical school, unable to handle the pressure and the debt. About working double shifts to pay rent while they asked why I couldn't be more like my sister, the successful lawyer, or my brother, the accountant. They wanted you to be something you weren't, Alexander said when I finished. They wanted me to be safe, stable, successful. I drained my glass. Instead, I'm a waitress hiding in a mobster's penthouse because I returned his fake money. You're a survivor. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. You could have taken that bill, Sophia. Could have pocketed it and gone about your night. But you didn't, because deep down, you knew something was off. That instinct, he pointed at me. That's what keeps people alive in my world. I don't want to be in your world. Too late. His voice was soft, almost regretful. The moment the Marchettis saw you with me, you became part of it. There's no going back. The weight of that truth settled over me like a shroud. My old life, my apartment, my job, my careful anonymity was gone, burned away in an alley, replaced by this. Luxury and danger, protection and threat, all wrapped up in a man whose touch made me forget I should be terrified. Show me, I said suddenly. Show you what? I gestured to his forearms, to the tattoos peeking from beneath his rolled sleeves. Your ink. You're looking at my scars. I held up my hands, showing the burns from years of restaurant work. So let me see yours. Something shifted in his expression. Surprise, maybe. Or respect. He set down his glass and began unbuttoning his shirt, slowly, holding my gaze the entire time. The tattoos covered his chest and abdomen, a massive Orthodox cross over his heart, Cyrillic script across his ribs, stars on his shoulders that I recognized from documentaries about Russian prison culture. But it was the scars that caught my attention. Knife wounds, bullet holes, the puckered flesh of old burns. His body was a map of violence, each mark a story of survival. How many? I whispered. Times I've been stabbed? Shot? Burned? He stood, letting the shirt fall open. I stopped counting after the first dozen. I stood too, drawn forward by something I couldn't name. My fingers hovered over a particularly nasty scar below his left ribs, raised and angry, like it hadn't healed properly. Knife, he said. 5 years ago. Marchetti enforcer who got lucky. His hand covered mine, pressing my palm flat against his skin. His heart beat steady beneath my touch. He's not alive to brag about it. Does it hurt? I looked up at him. We were close now, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body. Everything hurts, Solnishko. His free hand came up, fingers tangling in my hair. That's how you know you're alive. He was going to kiss me. I could see the intent in his eyes, feel the tension crackling between us. I should have stepped back, maintained boundaries, remembered that this man had killed 3 people in front of me just hours ago. Instead, I rose on my toes, closing the distance. His lips were surprisingly soft, gentle even as his hand tightened in my hair. He kissed like a man who understood restraint, holding back when he could have taken more. The hand I'd pressed against his scar slid up, over his chest, feeling the thundering of his heart that matched my own. When we broke apart, both breathing hard, his forehead rested against mine. This is a mistake, he murmured. I know. You should go back to your room. I know. Neither of us moved. Sophia. My name was a warning and a prayer. If you stay, if we do this, there's no pretending tomorrow that it didn't happen. No going back to seeing me as just your captor. Who says I see you that way now? His laugh was rough, tortured. Then what do you see? I pulled back enough to look at him, really look at him. Past the violence and the reputation and the fear his name inspired, What I saw was a man who'd been born into darkness but still tested strangers for honesty, who killed to protect and carried the weight of those deaths, who looked at me like I was something precious he didn't deserve but couldn't resist. I see someone who understands what it's like to be trapped, I said. By family, by choices, by circumstances beyond your control. And that makes you want to kiss me? That makes me want to understand you. I stepped back, breaking contact. But you're right. It's a mistake. I should go. I made it 3 steps before his hand caught my wrist, spinning me back. This kiss was different, hungrier, more desperate. His hands mapped my body through the soft clothes he'd provided, and I arched into him, chasing sensation, chasing connection, chasing something I couldn't name but desperately needed. Stay. He breathed against my mouth. Just for tonight. Stay with me. I should have said no. Should have maintained walls and distance and self-preservation. Yes, I said instead. Yes. Chapter 4. Glass and gunfire. I woke to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows and the smell of coffee. For one blissful moment I forgot where I was, forgot the alley, the bodies, the dangerous man whose bed I'd shared. Then memory crashed back, and I sat up too quickly, head spinning. Alexander stood by the windows, already dressed in dark slacks and a crisp white shirt, phone pressed to his ear. He spoke in rapid Russian, his free hand gesturing sharply as he paced. Even from across the room, I could read the tension in his shoulders, the hard line of his jaw. Something was wrong. I slipped from the bed, wrapping myself in the sheet. Last night felt like a fever dream. The whiskey, the confessions, the way he'd touched me like I was something holy instead of a complication he needed to manage. In the harsh light of day, embarrassment flooded through me. I'd kissed him. Let him kiss me. Slept in his arms while his enemies plotted revenge and my old life dissolved into nothing. Stay in the penthouse today, Alexander said in English, ending his call. He turned to face me, and his expression was carved from ice, the tender man from last night replaced by the Bratva king. Don't go near the windows. Don't answer the door. Don't contact anyone from your old life. What happened? The Marchettis hit 3 of my warehouses overnight, burned them to the ground. He moved to the bar, pouring coffee from a silver carafe. They're sending a message. They won't stop until they have you, or until I'm willing to negotiate. Then let me go. I clutched the sheet tighter. Give them what they want. End this. What they want is to use you as leverage then. Kill you anyway. He held out a cup of coffee black, the way I'd mentioned I liked it last night in our whispered conversations. That's not happening. You barely know me. I know enough. He set the cup on the nightstand when I didn't take it. Get dressed. Eat something. I'll be in my office making arrangements. What kind of arrangements? The kind that keep you alive. He moved toward the door, then paused. About last night, it was a mistake. The words hurt coming out, but I forced them anyway. You said it yourself. We were stressed, traumatized. It didn't mean anything. Something flickered across his face, hurt maybe, or anger. If that's what you need to believe, it's what I do believe. He studied me for a long moment, his dark eyes unreadable. Then you're lying to yourself, Solnishko. But I'll allow it, if it makes this easier for you. He straightened his cuffs. All business now. I'll have breakfast sent up. Stay away from the windows. Then he was gone, and I was alone with my regrets and a cup of coffee growing cold. The day stretched endlessly. I paced the penthouse like a caged animal, unable to settle, unable to think about anything except the weight of Alexander's body against mine and the way he'd whispered my name in the dark. The television showed news of warehouse fires in Red Hook, suspicious blazes under investigation, but no mention of bodies in alleys or waitresses gone missing. Around noon, one of Alexander's guards brought lunch on a silver tray. He was young, maybe early 20s, with nervous eyes that wouldn't quite meet mine. Mr. Volkov says you should eat, he said in heavily accented English, setting the tray on the dining table. Where is he? Meeting. Downtown. The guard shifted uncomfortably. The guard? He says to tell you he'll return before dark. And if I want to leave? The guard's hand moved instinctively toward his hip, where I knew a gun was holstered. Please, miss. Don't ask me to stop you, Mr. Volkov. He would. He trailed off, but I understood. Alexander would kill anyone who let me walk into danger, even his own men. It's okay. I'm not leaving. I forced a smile. Thank you for lunch. He nodded gratefully and left, locking the penthouse door behind him. I heard the electronic beep of the security system engaging. Fortress or prison, the line between them grew thinner by the hour. I was picking at grilled salmon when the windows exploded. Glass erupted inward in a glittering wave, and I hit the floor on instinct, hands over my head. Gunfire crackled sharp, rapid bursts that made my ears ring. Someone was screaming, and it took me a moment to realize it was me. "Sophia!" The young guard burst through the door, weapon drawn. "Get to the safe room. Now. Where? Down the hall, last door on the left. Go." More gunfire, closer now. The guard returned fire through the shattered windows, and I scrambled to my feet, glass crunching under my bare feet. Blood bloomed on the floor mine, from cuts I couldn't feel through the adrenaline. I ran. The hallway seemed impossibly long, sounds distorting into a nightmare symphony of gunshots and shouting, and the whistle of more bullets punching through walls. The last door on the left was steel, heavy, with a keypad beside it. I slammed my fist against it uselessly, sobbing now, as the shooting intensified behind me. Then hands grabbed me, rough, unfamiliar, and I screamed, fighting, kicking, until a voice penetrated my panic. "It's me. It's Dmitri." Another guard, older, his face grim. He punched a code into the keypad, and the door swung open on silent hinges. Inside, quickly. He shoved me into darkness, and I stumbled, falling hard on concrete. The door slammed shut, cutting off the chaos outside. Emergency lighting flickered on, revealing a windowless room, maybe 10 feet square, concrete walls, shelves lined with supplies, a rack of weapons that made my stomach turn, a safe room, a bunker. I curled into a ball in the corner, hands pressed over my ears, trying to block out the muffled sounds of warfare above. This was real. This was happening. Men were dying because of me, because I'd passed a test I didn't understand and caught the attention of someone I should have run from. Time became elastic. Minutes or hours, I couldn't tell. The shooting eventually stopped, replaced by an oppressive silence that was somehow worse. I strained to hear footsteps, voices, any sign of who had won. When the door finally opened, I screamed, "Sophia, Solnishko, it's me." Alexander filled the doorway, backlit by emergency lights from the hallway. His white shirt was no longer white, splattered with blood and soot and cordite. His face was a mask of cold fury, but his eyes searched mine with desperate intensity. "Are you hurt?" He knelt beside me, hands running over my arms, my legs, cataloging damage. "Your feet, Christ, you're bleeding." The windows broke. I ran. "You did perfect." He pulled me against his chest, and I felt his heart hammering. "You did everything right, Solnishko, everything." The guard, the young one who brought lunch, Mikhail, he's dead. Alexander's voice was hollow. "He died protecting you. Held the hallway long enough for Dmitri to reach you." Fresh sobs tore through me. A boy, barely more than a kid, dead because he'd been assigned to watch me. Because I'd been stupid enough to hand back a counterfeit bill. This is my fault. No. Alexander pulled back, gripping my face in both hands. "This is the Marchetti's fault. This is the price of the life I lead. But you, Sophia, you are innocent in this. Do you understand? Innocent. How many? How many? How many what? How many of your men died today?" His jaw tightened. 3, including Mikhail. 3 more bodies. 3 more families who'd received news that their sons, brothers, fathers weren't coming home. All because a mobster had tested a waitress and decided she was worth keeping. "I can't do this." I tried to stand, but my cut feet screamed in protest. "I can't be worth this. Let me go. End this. Letting you go won't end anything." Alexander stood, lifting me effortlessly into his arms. "It'll just mean you die alone instead of protected. Is that what you want?" "I want to not be responsible for people dying." "Then you're in the wrong fucking world." His voice was harsh, cutting. "People die, Sophia. Every day. In my world, in yours. The only difference is whether their deaths mean something." He carried me down the destroyed hallway, past bullet holes and bloodstains, and the sheet-covered shape that had been Mikhail. Mikhail's death meant something. He protected an innocent. He did his job with honor. That's more than most people get. We reached his bedroom, or what was left of it. The windows were completely gone, plastic sheeting taped up as a temporary barrier. Glass covered every surface. My coffee cup lay shattered on the floor, dark liquid seeping into the expensive carpet. Alexander set me carefully on the bathroom counter and pulled out a first aid kit. He knelt before me, lifting one foot into his lap, picking glass from my sole with tweezers. His hands were gentle despite his earlier harshness, and I watched him work through a haze of shock and grief. "I felt something last night," I said quietly. "With you. Something real." His hand stilled. "Sophia. But I don't know if it's real or if it's just Stockholm Syndrome or trauma bonding or whatever they call it when you start caring about your captor." "I'm not your captor." "Then what are you?" He looked up at me, and the raw vulnerability in his expression stole my breath. "I don't know yet. But I know I'd burn the world to keep you safe. I know I'd kill every Marchetti in New York before I'd let them touch you. I know that when I heard the shooting, when I thought you might be..." His voice broke. "I've never been afraid like that, not even when facing my own death. That's not love, Alexander. That's obsession. Maybe." He returned to cleaning my wounds, wrapping my feet in gauze. "Or maybe it's the beginning of something that could be love, if we survive long enough to find out. And what if we don't survive? Then at least I'll die knowing I tried to protect something good." He finished with my feet and stood, cupping my face again. "You're good, Sophia. Pure in a way I haven't seen in years. I won't let them corrupt that. I won't let them take you. Even if keeping me means more of your men die. Every man who works for me knows the risks. They choose this life, same as I did." His thumb brushed away a tear I hadn't realized I'd shed. "But you didn't choose this. And I'm sorrier than you'll ever know that my world touched yours." "I'm not sorry." The words surprised us both. "I should be, but I'm not." "Is that crazy?" "Probably." His smile was sad, exhausted. "But I'll take crazy over you hating me." He kissed my forehead, chaste and gentle, then lifted me again. "You're staying in the safe room tonight. It's the only place that's secure until I can have the penthouse properly repaired." "Where will you be?" "Hunting." His expression hardened back into ice. "The Marchettis declared war when they attacked my home. Now I respond in kind. Don't go." I gripped his shirt. "Stay with me. Please." "Sophia, I don't want to be alone in that concrete box wondering if you're dead. I don't want to..." My voice cracked. "I don't want to lose you before I understand what this is." Something in him seemed to break. The cold mob boss melted away, leaving just a man tired, worried, clinging to something he couldn't afford to want but couldn't force himself to abandon. "Okay," he whispered. "Okay, Solnishko. I'll stay." He carried me back to the safe room, sealing us inside away from blood and glass and the aftermath of violence. In the dim emergency lighting, he laid me on a cot someone had thoughtfully installed, then stretched out beside me, fully clothed, one arm wrapped protectively around my waist. "Tell me something true," I murmured into the darkness, "something you've never told anyone." He was quiet for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "I'm tired of the killing, the constant vigilance, the weight of all these lives depending on my decisions." His breath was warm against my neck. "I've been running this organization since I was 23, 12 years of blood and threats and impossible choices, and until 3 days ago, I couldn't imagine any other life. Couldn't see any way out. What changed 3 days ago? You handed back my fake money and looked at me like I was just a man, not a king, not a killer, just a man testing a stranger's honesty." His arm tightened around me. "And for the first time in 12 years, I wanted to be that. Just a man, maybe even a good one." "You could be," I said, "if you chose to." "Could I? Or am I too stained by what I've done?" I turned in his arms, facing him in the half-light. "I don't know, but I think the fact that you're asking means there's still something worth saving." He kissed me then, slow and searching, and I kissed him back, pouring all my confusion and fear and impossible, inappropriate want into the contact. When we broke apart, both shaking, his forehead rested against mine. "Stay alive," he whispered. "Whatever happens next, whatever choices you have to make, promise me you'll stay alive. I promise if you promise. Deal." We fell asleep like that, tangled together in a concrete bunker while his empire burned above us, clinging to each other like lifelines in a storm we could neither control nor escape. Chapter 5. His Throne. my cage. The next 3 days blurred together in a haze of temporary relocations and tightened security. Alexander moved me to one of his other properties, a brownstone in Park Slope, discreet and heavily guarded. I never saw the street outside. We entered through an underground garage, hustled through hallways by silent men with watchful eyes. The brownstone was smaller than the penthouse, but no less luxurious. My room overlooked a private garden where I couldn't be seen from neighboring buildings. Alexander assigned 2 guards to me at all times. Women, I noticed, perhaps thinking I'd find that less intimidating. Irina and Katya, both ex-military, both capable of killing me 6 ways before I could blink. They were also surprisingly kind. "You are not prisoner," Irina said, in heavily accented English, setting down a lunch tray on my 3rd day of isolation. "You are protected treasure." Big difference. Doesn't feel different. I pushed food around my plate, appetite non-existent. I still can't leave. "Would you prefer to leave? To run?" Katya sat across from me, her scarred hands folded on the table. "I have seen what Marchettis do to women, what they did to Alexander's sister." My head snapped up. His sister. The 2 women exchanged glances. "He has not told you?" Irina asked carefully. "Told me what?" "Not our story to share." Katya stood. "But you should ask him. He comes tonight to have dinner with you. Ask him then." They left me with more questions than answers and a growing sense that I'd stumbled into something far more complicated than a simple mob war. Alexander arrived at sunset, still wearing his work uniform of expensive suit and shoulder holster. But he looked different, older, tired, with new lines bracketing his mouth. 3 days of war had worn him down to edges. "You look awful," I said by way of greeting. He laughed, surprised. "Thank you. Very comforting. I'm not here to comfort you. I'm here because you won't let me leave." "Fair enough." He shrugged out of his jacket, wincing. When his shirt pulled tight, I saw the bandage beneath it, wrapped around his ribs. "You're hurt." "Barely. Just a graze." "A graze from what? A bullet?" I crossed to him, pulling his shirt free from his pants. "Let me see, Sophia, let me see." He allowed me to lift his shirt, revealing the bandage wrapped around his left side. Blood had seeped through, fresh and red. Someone had shot him, and he'd just continued with his day like it was nothing. When did this happen? This morning. A Marchetti patrol spotted my car. We returned fire. I was careless. He caught my hands as I reached for the bandage. "It's fine. Already been treated." "It's not fine. You could have died." "I've been shot before, Solnishko. I'll be shot again. Occupational hazard. Don't joke about this." I pulled away, wrapping my arms around myself. "Katya mentioned your sister. She said the Marchettis did something to her." Every line of his body went rigid. "Katya talks too much. What happened to your sister, Alexander?" For a long moment I thought he wouldn't answer. He moved to the window, staring out at the garden where twilight was deepening into night. When he spoke, his voice was hollow, distant. "Her name was Anya. She was 19. Beautiful, smart, full of dreams about leaving this life and studying art in Paris." He braced his hands on the windowsill. "She fell in love with a Marchetti soldier. Antonio. He seemed genuine, devoted. I vetted him myself, found no red flags. So I gave them my blessing." "What happened?" "It was a setup, a long game to get close to our family." His hands tightened until his knuckles went white. 6 years ago, they took her. Used Antonio to drug her at a restaurant. Grabbed her off the street. Sent me her finger with a demand. Give them 3 territories or they'd send her back in pieces. Horror crawled up my spine. "Did you give them the territories?" "Of course I did. All 3, without negotiation." They returned Anya 3 days later. He turned to face me, and his eyes were empty, haunted. She'd been tortured, raped, broken in ways that left scars I'll never unsee. Antonio had participated, laughing the whole time. "Oh God, Alexander," she lasted. 2 weeks after that. Then she walked into the ocean and didn't come back. His voice cracked. "I found Antonio 6 months later. What I did to him took 3 days. And when I was done, I swore I'd never let the Marchettis hurt someone I cared about again." The pieces clicked into place. "That's why you're protecting me. Because I remind you of her." "No." He crossed to me in 3 strides, gripping my shoulders. "You're nothing like Anya. She was innocent, sheltered, naive about the world's cruelty. You. He searched my face. You're a survivor. You've seen hardship, made difficult choices, kept going when easier paths existed. You're strong in ways Anya never got the chance to be. Then why? Why risk everything for someone you barely know? Because I can. His hand slid down my arms, tangling with my fingers. Because with Anya, I failed. I didn't see the trap until it was too late. But with you, I saw it coming. The test in the restaurant, the Marchettis watching, the inevitable move against you. And this time, I could act. I could save someone. I'm not your redemption, Alexander. Maybe not. But you're something. He pulled me closer, until we were chest to chest, sharing breath. Something good I'm not ready to lose. Even if protecting me costs you the war, I'll win the war. His voice was steel wrapped in silk. I've been holding back, playing defense, trying to minimize casualties, but they attacked my home, shot at you. That changed things. What are you going to do? His smile was terrifying. What I should have done 6 years ago. End them completely. The matter-of-fact way he discussed genocide should have repulsed me, should have sent me running, screaming, demanding he let me go before I became complicit in mass murder. Instead, I felt something darker, satisfaction, safety. The primal comfort of knowing someone powerful had claimed you as theirs and would destroy anything that threatened that claim. I'm becoming like you, I whispered. Your world is infecting me. Or maybe you always had this darkness inside you, and my world just gave you permission to acknowledge it. He cupped my face, thumbs brushing my cheekbones. Not everyone can survive what you've survived these past few days, Sophia. The violence, the fear, the moral ambiguity. But you're still standing, still fighting. That's not infection, that's adaptation. Is there a difference? Ask me in a week. He leaned down, breath ghosting over my lips. After I've eliminated the threat, and you can choose freely whether to stay or go, then tell me if you think you're infected, or just finally seeing clearly. And if I choose to go? Pain flickered across his features. Then I'll let you. I'll set you up with a new identity, new city, enough money to start over safely. And I'll remember you as the one good thing I almost had. Almost. I'm not foolish enough to think I deserve you completely. His lips brushed mine, feather light, but I'm selfish enough to try. This kiss was different from the others, less desperate, more deliberate. He kissed me like he was memorizing me, cataloging every gasp and shiver for lonely nights ahead. I kissed him back with equal intensity, trying to pour all my confusion into the contact. I didn't know if what I felt was real or manufactured by circumstance. Didn't know if I was falling for him or just clinging to my captor in some textbook psychological response. But I knew I didn't want him to let go. Stay tonight, I breathed against his mouth. Not for protection or strategy. Just stay. Sophia, I have meetings. Plans to finalize. Fuck the plans. I pulled him toward the bedroom, emboldened by want and fear, and the knowledge that any moment could be our last. Stay with me. Let the war wait one more night. He resisted for half a second, duty warring with desire. Then he gave in, following me into the bedroom, kicking the door shut behind us. His hands found the hem of my shirt, and I raised my arms, letting him pull it over my head. His touch was reverent as he traced the curve of my waist, the swell of my breasts, like he was touching something sacred. You're sure? He asked, even as his fingers flicked open the button of my jeans. I haven't been sure of anything since you sat in my section. I worked at his shirt buttons, frustrated by their finicky nature. But I'm sure I want this. Want you. Even if it's crazy. Even if I regret it tomorrow. You'll regret me, he said, helping me with his shirt, revealing the bandage and the tattoos and the roadmap of violence written on his skin. Eventually you'll hate what I am. What I do. Maybe. I traced the Orthodox cross over his heart. But not tonight. He lifted me onto the bed, settling between my thighs, and for the first time in days, the fear receded, replaced by heat and want and the desperate need to feel something other than terror. He moved above me, inside me, and I clung to him like salvation, matching his rhythm, chasing oblivion. Afterward, we lay tangled in expensive sheets, sweat cooling on our skin. His fingers traced lazy patterns on my shoulder, and I watched the rise and fall of his chest, counting breaths, counting moments of peace before reality crashed back in. I need to tell you something. he said quietly. About tomorrow. My stomach dropped. What about tomorrow? I'm meeting with Don Marchetti. Neutral ground, mediators present. He propped himself on one elbow, looking down at me. I'm offering him a deal. I'll cede 2 territories in exchange for guaranteed safety for you. Written into the agreement, witnessed by the other families. No. I sat up, pulling the sheet around myself. You can't give up territory because of me. Your men died defending those warehouses. My men died because I miscalculated Marchetti's response. That's on me, not you. His hand found mine, squeezing. And 2 territories is a small price for ending this war before more people die. He won't accept. He'll see it as weakness. Let me worry about Marchetti. Alexander pulled me back down beside him. You just focus on staying safe. Tomorrow night this will all be over. But the tightness in his voice told me he was lying, or hoping, and in my experience, hope was the most dangerous thing you could carry into a war. Chapter 6, The Traitor's Name. I didn't see Alexander the next morning. He was gone before dawn, leaving only a note on the pillow. Stay inside. Trust no one but Irina and Katya. I'll return by tonight. The day crawled by with agonizing slowness. I tried to read, to watch television, to do anything to distract myself from imagining what was happening at that meeting. Was Alexander negotiating my freedom right now? Or walking into a trap orchestrated by enemies who'd already proven they'd stop at nothing? Around 3 p.m., Irina's phone buzzed. She read the message, and her face went pale. What is it? I asked, setting down my untouched coffee. Get to the safe room. Now. Why? What's happening? Move. Katya grabbed my arm, hauling me toward the hallway. Behind us, I heard the front door explode inward, heard shouting and gunfire and Irina screaming in Russian. We ran. The safe room was in the basement, another concrete bunker, another steel door with a keypad. Katya's fingers flew over the numbers, and the door clicked open just as footsteps thundered down the stairs behind us. Inside! She shoved me through, turning to face our pursuers. Lock it behind me. No, do it. Protect yourself. Alexander will. The gunshot cut off her words. Katya jerked backward, blood blooming across her chest, and fell. Standing behind her, smoking gun in hand, was a woman I'd never seen before. Tall, blonde, beautiful in a cold, sculpted way. She wore expensive clothes and an expression of bored amusement. Hello, Sophia, she said in unaccented English. I'm Isabella Marchetti. We have so much to discuss. I slammed the door shut, fingers fumbling with the interior locks. They engaged with solid thuds, 3 deadbolts, and an electronic seal that Alexander had assured me could withstand anything short of explosives. Isabella's laugh filtered through the steel. Oh, this is precious. You think you're safe in there? Locked away in your boyfriend's bunker? I backed away from the door, searching the room for weapons, for phones, for anything. My hands found a radio emergency communications to Alexander's security team. I grabbed it, pressing the button. This is Sophia. The brownstone is compromised. Katya and Irina are down. I'm in the safe room, but no one's coming, dear. Isabella's voice was clearer now, amplified. She must have found the intercom system. Your precious Alexander is currently occupied at our meeting, a meeting that's going very differently than he expected. What did you do? Me? Nothing yet. But my father. Her laugh was sharp, cruel. Let's just say Alexander walked into that room expecting negotiation. He'll walk out if he walks out at all, knowing exactly what it costs to protect a waitress who means nothing. Fear turned my blood to ice. You're lying. Am I? Check your phone, Sophia, the one in your pocket. I had someone slip it back to you yesterday, fully charged, fully functional. Check the news. With shaking hands, I pulled out my phone. I'd assumed it was dead, hadn't even tried to turn it on. But when I pressed the power button, it lit up immediately. Dozens of missed calls and messages flooding in. The top news alert made my stomach drop. Breaking. Violence erupts at mob summit. Multiple casualties. I clicked through with numb fingers, reading the details. A restaurant in Chinatown, chosen as neutral ground for peace talks between the Volkov and Marchetti families. Gunfire had erupted 20 minutes ago. Bodies in the street. Witnesses reporting explosions. No word yet on who'd survived. You ambushed him. My voice came out flat, dead. You never intended to negotiate. Of course not. But Alexander's so noble. So determined to save you. He walked right into our trap. Isabella's voice dripped with satisfaction. By now, my brothers have either killed him or captured him. Either way, he's finished. And you, sweet Sophia, are the bait that destroyed the Volkov Empire. No. I sank to the floor, phone clattering from my grip. No, this isn't. He can't be. Dead? Maybe. Probably. A pause. But I'll tell you what. You come out of that room right now, voluntarily, and I'll make sure he gets medical attention. I'll personally guarantee his survival. All you have to do is open the door. So you can kill me? Kill you? God, no. You're far too valuable as leverage. I could hear her smile. But I will hurt you. Make you scream. Record it and send it to Alexander while he's bleeding out, so the last thing he hears is you suffering because of his choices. Unless, of course, you prefer I let him die wondering if he saved you. The cruelty was breathtaking, and the worst part was, I believed her. Isabella Marchetti had that same matter-of-fact tone Alexander used when discussing violence, the voice of someone for whom causing pain was just business. How do I know you're telling the truth? I asked, stalling for time. How do I know Alexander's really hurt? Oh, you want proof? A rustling sound. Then a video call notification appeared on my phone screen. Against my better judgment, I answered. The video showed a warehouse, dimly lit and filled with blood. In the center, tied to a chair, was Alexander. His face was a mask of blood and bruises, one eye swollen shut. But he was alive, chest rising and falling, head hanging forward. Alexander! I screamed at the screen. His head lifted slightly at my voice. Through split lips, he managed one word. Run. Then someone off camera hit him, and his head snapped back. The video cut out. So now you know, Isabella said. He's alive. Suffering, but alive. And he'll stay that way only as long as you cooperate. So what's it going to be, Sophia? Your freedom or his life? I looked around the safe room at the weapons I didn't know how to use, at the supplies that could keep me alive for weeks, at the steel door that would keep me safe from everything except my own conscience. I thought about Alexander's sister, tortured and broken, and driven to suicide. I thought about Mikhail, dying to protect me. I thought about Katya, taking a bullet meant for me just minutes ago. I thought about Alexander whispering that I was something good he wasn't ready to lose. I'm not opening this door, I said. Not for you. Not for anyone. Isabella's laugh was genuinely amused. Brave words for someone locked in a box. But you'll break eventually. Everyone does. So I'll wait right here, patient as a saint, while you come to terms with the fact that every second you spend in there is another second Alexander suffers. Every hour, I'll send you a new video. Show you what we're doing to him. And when you finally can't take it anymore, when you're begging to trade yourself for him, I'll be here to open my arms and welcome you to hell. The intercom cut off, leaving me in silence, broken only by my own ragged breathing. I was trapped. Alexander was captured. His guards were dead, and I had no way to call for help that wouldn't lead the Marchettis right to me. The phone in my hand buzzed a text from an unknown number. Another video. I didn't want to watch it. Couldn't force myself to see what they were doing to him. But I watched anyway, because he'd face his own torture without flinching, and the least I could do was bear witness. The video showed Alexander being beaten methodically by two men while Isabella watched from a chair, sipping wine. After each hit, she'd lean forward and ask him questions. Where are your other safe houses? What are your bank account numbers? Who's your inside man in the NYPD? He never answered. Just spit, blood at her feet, and waited for the next blow. At the video's end, Isabella looked directly at the camera. He's protecting you, Sophia, refusing to give up any information that might lead us to you. Isn't that romantic? Her smile was poison. I wonder how long his nobility will last. How many broken bones before he starts talking? How many hours before he regrets ever meeting you? The video ended. I sat in that concrete bunker, trapped between impossible choices, and realized I'd been wrong about so many things. About Alexander, about his world, about my place in it. I'd thought I could keep one foot in my old life and one foot in his. Thought I could ride this out and emerge unchanged. But there was no unchanged, no going back. The moment I'd handed back that counterfeit bill, I'd stepped onto a path that led here, to a choice between my safety and his life, between selfishness and sacrifice. I knew what he'd want me to do. Stay hidden, stay safe. Let him die if necessary, as long as I lived. But what I needed was something different. I picked up the radio again, searching for any channel that might reach help. And I started planning how to save the man who'd tried to save me, even if it meant walking into hell with my eyes open. Chapter 7. What I sacrificed, what he'd burn. I spent 6 hours in that safe room, searching for a solution that wouldn't end with both of us dead. The videos came every hour, as promised. Each one showed Alexander deteriorating, more blood, less resistance, his breaths becoming shallower. Isabella narrated them like a sports commentator, cheerfully detailing each new injury. 3 broken ribs, dislocated shoulder, countless lacerations. By the 5th video, he wasn't conscious anymore, just hanging limply in his restraints while they worked him over. And yet he hadn't talked, hadn't given them anything. Around midnight, my phone rang. Not a video this time, an actual call from Isabella's number. Still feeling noble? She asked when I answered. Still think hiding is worth watching him die by inches? What do you want from me? My voice was hoarse from crying. You've already won. You have him. You're destroying his organization. What does killing him accomplish? Killing him? She sounded genuinely puzzled. Sophia, I don't want to kill Alexander Volkov. I want to break him. Make him watch everything he's built crumble because he was stupid enough to fall for some nobody waitress. A pause. But I'd settle for you. Trade yourself for him. Walk out of that room, get in my car, and I'll release him to his men. Simple exchange. And then you'll torture me instead. Obviously. But at least he lives. Isn't that what love means? Sacrifice? I thought about that word love. Did I love Alexander Volkov? Or was I just trauma-bonded to my captor, confusing protection for affection, danger for passion? A week ago, I didn't know he existed. Now I was considering dying for him. Let me talk to him, I said. Let me hear his voice. Know he's actually alive, and I'll consider it. Consider? Her laugh was sharp. You don't have negotiating power here. Then you don't have a deal. I forced steel into my voice. I can stay in this room for weeks. Alexander built it to withstand siege, but he's bleeding out right now, so who's really running out of time? Silence. Then, you're smarter than you look. Fine, I'll give you 2 minutes with him. But Sophia, if you tell him where you are, if you try to coordinate rescue, I'll cut out his tongue and send it to you in a box. Understood? Understood. The line went quiet, then I heard shuffling, a groan of pain, and finally his voice weak, slurred, but unmistakably Alexander. Solnishko? I'm here. Tears streamed down my face. I'm okay. I'm safe. Good. Stay that way. He coughed, wet and rattling. Don't come for me. Don't trade yourself. Promise me. Alexander, promise me, Sophia. This is my fault. My war. My consequences. His breathing was labored. You were supposed to be the one good thing I didn't destroy. You didn't destroy me. You saved me. Saved you? He laughed bitterly. Look where you are. Locked in a bunker while you suffer because of me. That's not salvation, Solnishko. That's damnation. The woman you what? My heart hammered. Alexander, finish that sentence. Time's up. Isabella's voice cut in, stealing the phone back. Did you hear enough? Is he pathetic enough yet to inspire your grand sacrifice? Let me think about it, I said. Give me until morning, then I'll give you my answer. Morning? He might not last until... Then I guess you'd better keep him alive. I ended the call before she could respond. My hands were shaking, but my mind was clear. I'd spent 6 hours in this bunker thinking there was no way out, but I'd been thinking like the old Sophia, the waitress who kept her head down and avoided conflict. I needed to think like Alexander had taught me. Strategic, ruthless, willing to play dirty. I pulled up the phone's contact list, scrolling past my few friends and family to the numbers that had been added recently. Alexander's contacts, synced when his people had returned my phone. Hundreds of names and numbers, his network, his resources, his empire. I found what I was looking for. Dmitri, the guard who'd saved me during the penthouse attack, the one Alexander trusted. I called. He answered on the second ring. Sophia, where are you? We've been searching. Dmitri, listen carefully. I don't have much time. I spoke quickly, laying out everything: the attack, Isabella's videos, Alexander's location as best I could determine from the warehouse footage. I need you to assemble a team, biggest force you can muster, and I need you to be ready to move in exactly 6 hours. 6 hours? Sophia? He might not. He'll last. Isabella wants him alive to use against me. I pulled up the last video, studying the background. The warehouse has a shipping logo partially visible. Castellano import divided by export. How many warehouses do they own? 3, but only one is remote enough for something like this. Red Hook, near the waterfront. A pause. You're not thinking of, I'm going to trade myself for him. But it's going to be a fake trade. I need you and your men waiting nearby. When I give the signal, you come in hard and fast. That's suicide. If they see us coming, they won't. Because they'll be focused on me. I thought about the guns in the safe room, the ones I'd been too afraid to touch. Can you walk me through loading a pistol? Sophia, you're not a killer. I'm whatever I need to be to save him. My voice didn't shake. Now teach me how to use these weapons, or stand aside and let him die because you were too afraid to let me try. Dmitri was silent for a long moment. Then, okay, here's what you need to know. At 6 a.m., I called Isabella back. I'll do it, I said without preamble. I'll trade myself for him. But I have conditions. You're not in a position to. Condition 1. The exchange happens at a location of my choosing. Public enough that you can't just kill us both without witnesses. I'd spent the night studying maps of Brooklyn. The old Navy Yard, Pier 7. Dawn tomorrow. Plenty of security cameras, early morning workers nearby. You try anything, and it'll be on film. Bold of you to assume I care about witnesses. You care about the other families seeing you break protocols. This needs to look legitimate, a proper exchange, overseen by neutral parties. Otherwise, you look like the aggressor, and the other families will unite against you. I was guessing, but it sounded right. You want Alexander's empire, not a 5-family war. Another pause. Fine. Pier 7, 6 a.m. But if you bring any of his men, I'll come alone. But Alexander leaves first. You put him in a car, send him to a hospital, then I walk over to you. That's the deal. How do I know you won't run once he's safe? Because, I said, I give you my word, and unlike you, I don't break my promises. Isabella laughed. You're either very brave or very stupid. Fine. We'll do it your way. But Sophia, if this is a trick, if Volkov's men show up, I'll kill you both and burn Brooklyn to the ground. Clear? Crystal. I ended the call and immediately dialed Dmitri. It's happening. Tomorrow morning, 6 a.m., Navy Yard, Pier 7. Get your men in position by 5:30. Stay hidden until I give the signal. What's the signal? I looked at the pistol I'd spent the night learning to load and fire, at the spare magazine I'd tucked into my jacket pocket. You'll know it when you hear it. The next morning, I walked out of that safe room for the first time in days. The brownstone was destroyed, bullet holes everywhere, blood staining the floors. Katya's body was gone, moved by someone, but I could still see where she'd fallen. I stepped over that spot, walked out the door, and caught a cab to the Navy Yard. The driver eyed me strangely. I looked rough, wearing clothes I'd slept in, hair wild, eyes hollow from lack of sleep. But I'd placed 300s on the dashboard, and money bought silence. You okay, miss? He asked as we pulled up to Pier 7. No, I said honestly, but I will be. I got out into the gray dawn light. The pier was exactly as I'd hoped, open space. Good sightlines. Several early morning workers visible in the distance. Not private enough for an execution. Not public enough to attract immediate attention. Isabella's car was already there, a black sedan with tinted windows. She stepped out, wearing designer athleisure and dark sunglasses, looking like she was heading to yoga rather than a hostage exchange. Sophia Russo, she smiled, removing the sunglasses. You actually came. I'm almost impressed. Where is he? Right here. She gestured, and 2 men dragged Alexander from the back seat. My heart stopped. He looked worse, then in the video's face unrecognizable beneath bruises and dried blood, moving with the careful stiffness of someone with broken ribs. But he was conscious, and when his good eye found me, it went wide with horror. No, he croaked. Sophia, what did you know? Let him go, I said to Isabella. That was the deal. He leaves, then I come to you. Show me you're unarmed first. I raised my arms, turning slowly. The pistol was tucked into the small of my back, hidden by my jacket. She couldn't see it from this distance. Satisfied? I asked. Thoroughly. Isabella nodded to her men. Put him in the second car. Send him to Brooklyn Methodist. Make sure he's treated. No. Alexander fought against the men holding him, but he was too weak. Sophia, don't do this. I'm not worth. Yes, you are. I met his eyes across the distance. You're worth everything. They shoved him into another car, and it peeled away, heading toward the hospital. I watched until I couldn't see it anymore, until I was sure he was truly safe. Then I started walking toward Isabella. That's it, she cooed. Come to me, little martyr. Come, let me show you what nobility costs. I was 10 feet away when I pulled the gun. Isabella's smile vanished. Her men reached for their weapons, but I had mine aimed at her head, and my hand was steady. Call them off, I said, or I put a bullet in your brain right here, right now, and let the cameras sort out who was right. You won't shoot me. But uncertainty crept into her voice. You're not a killer. You're right. I'm not. I shifted my aim slightly, not at her head, but at her kneecap. But I'll absolutely cripple you. Make you spend the rest of your life limping. The question is torturing me worth that? For a moment we stood frozen, me with my gun, her with her men, both calculating odds. Then gunfire exploded from 3 directions. Dmitri and his team erupted from hiding behind shipping containers, inside warehouse windows, from rooftops. They moved with military precision, decades of training evident in every movement. Isabella's men went down before they could react, and suddenly she was surrounded, outgunned, staring at 30 barrels aimed at her head. Stand down, Dmitri shouted. Hands where we can see them. Isabella looked at me with something almost like respect. You played me. I learned from the best. I kept my gun steady. Now here's what's going to happen. You're going to call your father. You're going to tell him this war ends today. No more attacks. No more revenge plots. No bounties on anyone connected to Alexander Volkov. In exchange, he gets you back alive. He'll never agree to you will, because you're his only daughter. Because losing you would cost him more than any territory is worth. I stepped closer. And because if he doesn't, Alexander will do to your entire family what you did to his sister. Only slower. Only worse. I saw her swallow, saw fear finally crack through her composure. This isn't over. Yes, it is. I lowered my gun. Make the call. She did. I listened as she spoke to her father in rapid Italian, heard him screaming on the other end, heard her voice break as she begged him to agree. When she hung up, her hand was shaking. He agrees. Conditional ceasefire. Negotiated terms to follow. She straightened her spine. But you've made an enemy today, Sophia. The Marchetti family doesn't forget. Neither does the Volkov family. I handed my gun to Dmitri. Now get out of here before I change my mind. Isabella and her surviving men retreated to their car and disappeared into Brooklyn traffic. The moment they were gone, my legs gave out, and I collapsed to the pier, shaking uncontrollably. Dmitri caught me before I hit concrete. You did it. You actually pulled it off. Is he okay? Alexander, is he really at the hospital? My men are with him. He's in surgery now, but the doctors say he'll survive. Dmitri helped me to my feet. He's going to be furious when he wakes up and learns what you did. I know. I managed a weak smile. But he's alive to be furious. That's what matters. As Dmitri's men loaded me into an SUV, as we drove toward the hospital where Alexander was being put back together, I thought about everything I'd lost in the past week. My job, my apartment, my old life, my illusions about who I was and what I was capable of. And I thought about what I'd gained. A man who'd risked everything to protect me, a strength I didn't know I possessed, and the terrifying knowledge that I'd walk through fire for someone I barely knew, but somehow couldn't imagine living without. Love or madness, maybe there was no difference. Chapter 8. Choosing his darkness. I wasn't allowed to see Alexander immediately. The doctors ushered me into a private waiting room while they worked on him, setting bones, stitching wounds, running tests. Dmitri stayed with me, a silent presence that somehow made the waiting bearable. He'll pull through, Dmitri said after 2 hours of silence. I've seen him survive worse. How long have you worked for him? 8 years. Since I was 20. He leaned back in his chair, eyes distant with memory. He saved my life. I was running with a gang, stupid street-level stuff. Got caught in the crossfire of a territory dispute. Alexander found me bleeding out in an alley, personally drove me to his doctor, paid for everything. When I recovered, he offered me a choice: legitimate work or join his organization with a promise of protection and purpose. Dmitri smiled slightly. I chose the organization. Never regretted it. Why? Why would you choose this life? Because Alexander Volkov is the only man I've ever met who keeps his word, no matter the cost. He protects his people, values loyalty above profit, kills only when necessary and loses sleep over every body. Dmitri looked at me. That's rare in our world. Most bosses are sociopaths. But Alexander? He's just a good man doing terrible things to keep worse men at bay. That's a lot of moral gymnastics. Maybe. Or maybe the world isn't as black and white as you want it to be. He stood as a doctor entered. Either way, you'll have to decide for yourself whether he's worth the darkness. The doctor was a thin Indian woman with tired eyes. Miss Russo? Mr. Volkov is out of surgery. He's stable, but critical. 3 broken ribs, collapsed lung, severe concussion, multiple lacerations requiring over 200 stitches. He'll need weeks of recovery, possibly months before he's fully functional. But he'll live? Yes, he'll live. She hesitated. He's been asking for you. Quite insistently, actually. Would you like to see him? I followed her through sterile hallways to a private room at the end of the ward. Guards flanked the door, 4 of them, armed, watching everyone who passed. They nodded to me as I entered. Alexander lay in the hospital bed looking small and broken. Machines beeped around him. IVs fed into his arms. Bandages covered most of his visible skin. But his eyes were open, and when they found me, relief flooded his battered features. "You're alive," he breathed. "Thank God. I thought when they said you'd surrendered yourself, I'm fine." I crossed to his bedside, taking his uninjured hand in mine. "You're the one who looks like hell. Feel like it too." He tried to smile and winced. "Sophia, what you did trading yourself, the ambush that was either brilliant or insane. Can't it be both?" "Apparently." He squeezed my hand weakly. "Dmitri told me everything. The deal with Isabella, the ceasefire, how you held a gun on a Marchetti princess." His voice dropped. "You could have died." "So could you. We're even." "No, we're not." He shifted, groaning with pain. "I brought you into this world. I painted a target on your back. You owed me nothing, certainly not your life. I didn't do it because I owed you." I perched on the edge of his bed, careful not to jostle him. "I did it because..." The words stuck in my throat, terrifying in their honesty. "Because somewhere between that fake 20 and this hospital bed, I fell for you. Really, genuinely fell for you. And I couldn't live with myself if I'd stayed safe while you died." Alexander's eyes glistened. "You barely know me. I know enough. I know you tested me for honesty. I know you killed to protect me. I know you took torture rather than reveal where I was hidden." I traced my thumb over his knuckles. "I know that when I'm with you, I feel alive in ways I never did, serving coffee and pretending my life had meaning. Your life had meaning before me. Did it? Or was I just surviving, going through motions, waiting for something, anything to make me feel real?" I leaned closer. "You're dangerous, Alexander. Your world is violent and morally bankrupt and probably going to get me killed someday. But it's also more honest than anything I've ever known. No pretending, no social niceties masking cruelty. Just clear lines and direct consequences. That's the trauma talking. You're experiencing Stockholm Syndrome. Or, don't." I cut him off. "Don't diminish what I feel by pathologizing it. Maybe it started as trauma bonding. Maybe it's still partially that. But it's also real. It's also choice. I'm choosing you, Alexander Volkov. Not because you've trapped me, but because you've freed me. Freed you into a war zone. Freed me from a life of quiet desperation." I kissed his forehead, gentle around the bruises. "So stop trying to talk me out of this. Stop trying to be noble and push me away. Just accept that I'm here. I'm staying, and you're stuck with me." He stared at me for a long moment, searching my face. Then, slowly, carefully, he raised his good hand to cup my cheek. "I love you," he said. "I didn't want to, didn't plan to, but somewhere between testing you and protecting you and nearly dying for you, I fell completely, irreversibly in love. And that terrifies me, more than anything Isabella Marchetti could ever do." "Why?" "Because loving you makes you my weakness. Every enemy I have will use you against me. Every decision I make will be clouded by the need to keep you safe." His thumb brushed my cheekbone. "You'll never have a normal life. Never be free of guards and guns and the constant threat of violence. Is that really what you want? I thought about my apartment, my waitressing job, my student loan debt. I thought about my parents' disappointment and my careful, calculated safety. I thought about who I'd been a week ago. Small, scared, going through motions. And I thought about who I was now. Someone who'd held a gun to a mob princess, orchestrated a rescue, walked into danger with eyes open. I don't want normal, I said. I want real. And you, for all your violence and darkness, are the most real thing I've ever experienced. You'll regret this. But he was pulling me closer, ignoring his injuries. Someday, you'll wake up and realize what you've sacrificed. Then let me regret it. Let me make mistakes and bad choices and build a life that makes no sense on paper. I kissed him, careful of his split lip. But let me do it with you. He kissed me back, and it tasted like blood and promise and the beginning of something that would probably destroy us both but felt inevitable anyway. When we broke apart, both breathing hard despite his injuries, he rested his forehead against mine. If we're doing this, he said, really doing this, you need to understand some things. About my world, my organization, my obligations. Okay, I can't retire, can't walk away from the Bratva. I'm Volkov, this is my birthright, my responsibility. Men depend on me for their livelihoods, their family's safety. I can't abandon them. I'm not asking you to, but I can minimize the violence. Transition to more legitimate businesses. Make the organization something you don't have to be ashamed of. He stroked my hair. It'll take years, maybe decades, but I'll try. For you. Don't change for me. Change because you want to. I pulled back to look at him. I fell for who you are, Alexander. Darkness included. If you become someone else, someone safer and more acceptable, I might not love that version as much. He laughed, then groaned. You're going to be the death of me, Solnishko. Not if I can help it. I settled beside him on the bed, tucking myself against his uninjured side. Now rest. You need to heal. Stay? Always. We lay there in comfortable silence, listening to machines beep and guards shuffle outside and the city wake up beyond the windows. Somewhere out there, the Marchetti family was regrouping, plotting their next move. Somewhere, police were investigating warehouse fires and mysterious shootings. Somewhere, my old life was continuing without me, my apartment sitting empty, my former co-workers wondering where I'd disappeared to. But here, in this hospital room, with this broken, dangerous, impossible man beside me, I felt something I'd never felt in my safe, normal life. Home. Chapter 9. The War We Waged Together. 3 weeks later, I stood in front of floor-to-ceiling windows in Alexander's newly renovated penthouse, watching Manhattan sparkle below. Behind me, I could hear Dmitri briefing Alexander on the latest developments with the Marchetti ceasefire, territorial agreements, financial settlements, the delicate dance of mob diplomacy. I'd learned a lot in 3 weeks. I'd learned that Alexander owned 17 legitimate businesses and twice that many illegal ones. That his organization employed over 300 people, many of them immigrants with no other options. That he personally reviewed every violent action, trying to minimize casualties even as he maintained his reputation for ruthlessness. I'd learned that I was good at this life in ways I never expected. Good at reading people, at identifying threats, at maintaining the careful mask required when dealing with other families. Irina had started training me in self-defense, and I'd discovered I had natural fighting instincts when properly channeled. I'd learned that loving Alexander Volkov meant accepting darkness as part of the package but also discovering unexpected light. The way he laughed at my terrible jokes. The gentle way he touched me, like I was precious. The fact that he donated anonymously to 3 different charities that help trafficking victims, trying to atone for Anya's death. You're thinking too loudly, Alexander said, his arm sliding around my waist from behind. He moved better now, ribs mostly healed, though he still favored his left side. What's on your mind? My family. I leaned back against him. They've been calling, worried because I haven't contacted them in a month. I need to reach out, but I don't know what to say. Tell them the truth. That I'm dating a Russian mobster who almost died protecting me from an Italian mob war? I laughed. That'll go over well. You don't have to tell them everything. Just enough. He kissed my temple. They deserve to know you're alive and safe. Safe is relative. Fair point. He turned me to face him. He looked better, the bruises faded, the cuts healed into scars that added to his collection. But seriously, Sophia, you can't cut them off completely. Family matters, even when they don't understand our choices. Speaking from experience, my mother calls every Sunday, has for years even though she hates what I do. His smile was sad. She prays for my soul, lights candles in church, but she still calls. And your father? Dead 5 years now. Heart attack. He pulled me closer. He was a hard man, brutal, even by Bratva standards. But he loved my mother and my sister fiercely. Their deaths broke something in him. A pause. I don't want to be him, Sophia. Don't want to be so consumed by this life that I forget how to be human. You're not him. You're trying to be better. With your help. He cupped my face. You make me want to be better. Make me believe I can be. Before I could respond, Dmitri cleared his throat. Sorry to interrupt, but we have a situation. Alexander's expression shifted instantly from tender lover to cold strategist. What kind of situation? The Marchettis are requesting a meeting. Don Marchetti himself, not Isabella. He wants to discuss a proposition. A proposition or a trap? Could be both. Dmitri handed over a tablet showing the message details. He's suggesting neutral ground, multiple witnesses, and he specifically requested that Sophia attend. My stomach dropped. Me? Why? Because you embarrassed his daughter. Because you're Alexander's weak point. Dmitri's expression was grim. Or because he genuinely wants to negotiate and sees you as the bridge between families. It's a trap, I said immediately. Has to be. Maybe. Alexander studied the message. Or maybe Isabella going rogue and orchestrating an unauthorized torture session pissed off her father. Maybe he wants to clean up her mess and establish actual peace. You're actually considering this. I'm considering that 3 weeks of ceasefire has been good for business. That continued war will cost both families millions and dozens of lives. That maybe, just maybe, we can find a way forward that doesn't involve more bloodshed. He looked at me. But I won't risk you. If you say no, we decline. I thought about Mikhail, dying in a hallway. About Katya, taking a bullet meant for me. About Alexander's sister, destroyed by Marchetti cruelty. About all the violence that could continue if someone didn't try for peace. I'll go, I said. But we do it smart. Maximum security, clear exit strategy. And at the first sign of treachery, we burn it all down. Alexander's smile was proud and terrified. You're learning. I had a good teacher. The meeting was set for Saturday evening at a high-end restaurant in Manhattan, the kind of place where mob families had been conducting business for decades. Alexander brought 10 guards. The Marchettis brought 12. We met in a private room with multiple exits and neutral staff who'd been paid handsomely to ignore whatever they overheard. Don Marchetti was older than I expected, late 60s, silver-haired, with Isabella's cold blue eyes but none of her cruelty. He stood when we entered, gesture almost courtly. Mr. Volkov, Miss Russo. He nodded to each of us. Thank you for coming. Let's skip the pleasantries. Alexander remained standing, keeping me slightly behind him. What do you want? Peace. Don Marchetti gestured to the chairs. Real peace, not this fragile ceasefire that'll shatter the moment someone gets drunk and stupid. Your daughter already shattered it when she tortured me, Alexander said coldly. So forgive me if I don't trust Marchetti definitions of peace. My daughter acted without authorization, without family approval. The Don's expression darkened. She's been disciplined, and she's been removed from any position of authority within the organization. I felt a flicker of satisfaction. Disciplined how? With respect, Miss Russo, that's family business. But his eyes held a hint of approval. Let's just say Isabella won't be orchestrating any more unauthorized operations. Not good enough, I said, surprising myself. She tortured him, killed his men, put a $100,000 bounty on my head. Discipline doesn't cut it. What would cut it? The Don leaned forward. What would satisfy the Volkov family's sense of justice? Alexander and I exchanged glances. We'd discussed this possibility, planned for various scenarios, but I could see he was leaving the choice to me. Formal apology, I said. Public acknowledgement that Isabella acted against family orders, and a blood oath witnessed by the other families that the Marchettis will never move against me or anyone I care about. That's reasonable. The Don looked, almost relieved. In exchange, we want the 3 territories my daughter forced you to cede back in negotiations. Fair trade for fair peace. No, Alexander's voice was iron. Those territories cost me 3 warehouses and a dozen good men. You get them back when you've proven the peace will hold. 3 months, no incidents. Then we renegotiate territorial agreements. 1 month, 2, and the blood oath happens tonight, or there's no deal. The Don studied us both, Alexander with his cold calculation, me with my unexpected steel. Then he smiled. You've chosen well, Volkov. This one has spine. He stood, offering his hand. 2 months, blood oath tonight, and my personal guarantee that anyone who moves against her answers to me directly. Alexander shook his hand, sealing the deal. The oath ceremony was conducted in the restaurant's wine cellar, witnessed by representatives from the 5 major families. It involved old rituals, blood, promises, and the weight of tradition that bound the mob world together. I stood beside Alexander, our palms pressed together over a silver bowl, while the Don spoke words in Italian and then cut our joined hands with a ceremonial knife. Our blood mixed, dripping into the bowl, binding us in ways that felt both primitive and profound. What's joined in blood cannot be torn apart without consequence, the Don intoned. Sofia Russo is now under protection of both Volkov and Marchetti families. To harm her is to declare war on both. This I swear on the blood of my ancestors. Sworn and witnessed, the other families chorused, and just like that, I became untouchable, protected by the same world that had nearly killed me. Late that night, back in the penthouse, I stood before those same windows where this chapter had begun. But everything felt different now. Sharper, more real. Alexander wrapped himself around me from behind, and we swayed slightly, dancing to music only we could hear. No regrets? He murmured against my hair. Only that I didn't hand back that counterfeit bill sooner. I turned in his arms. Think about all the time we wasted not knowing each other. We knew each other exactly when we needed to. He kissed me deep, thorough, claiming, any sooner and neither of us would have been ready. Ready for what? This. Us. The life we're building. He pulled back to look at me. I meant what I said, Solnishko. I'm going to make this organization something you can be proud of. Something that does more good than harm. It'll take time. I have time. We have time. His hand slid down to my hips. The Marchetti peace will hold. The other families are stabilizing. For the first time in years, I can think about the future instead of just surviving to tomorrow. What kind of future? His smile was soft, vulnerable. The kind with you in it, permanently. The kind where maybe someday you're not just my girlfriend but my wife, my partner in every sense. My breath caught. Alexander, I'm not proposing. Not yet. He pulled me toward the bedroom. But I'm telling you my intentions. Letting you know that when I look at you, I see forever. And if that's too much too soon, tell me now. I thought about the girl I'd been a month ago serving coffee, paying rent late, dreaming small dreams. I thought about the woman I was now standing beside a mob boss, protected by blood oaths, training to defend myself in a world of violence. I thought about which version felt more like me. Forever sounds perfect, I said. Terrifying, but perfect. He lifted me, carrying me to bed despite doctor's orders to take it easy. As we fell together onto expensive sheets, as his hands found my skin and his mouth found mine, I realized something important. I'd been looking for meaning my whole life, searching for purpose in classrooms and kitchens and careful plans that never quite satisfied. And I'd found it in the last place I expected, in the arms of a man who dealt in violence but dreamed of redemption. In choosing his darkness, I'd found my own light. Chapter 10. The Life We Built from Ashes. 6 months later. I sat in Alexander's office, our office now, since I'd taken over managing the legitimate side of the business, reviewing contracts for a new restaurant venture. The brownstone had become headquarters after the penthouse renovation proved too expensive, and I'd grown to love this space. The history in the walls, the garden where I'd first been held captive now blooming under my care. Funny how prison could become home. These numbers look good, I said to Marcus, our accountant. If we move forward with the Brooklyn location, we should see profit within 18 months. Assuming no more mob wars shut down the neighborhood, Marcus said dryly. He'd adapted quickly to working for the Bratva. Turned out he'd been cooking books for the Marchettis for years before Alexander offered him protection and better pay. The peace has held. I signed the contract. 6 months. No incidents. Don Marchetti even sent a gift for Alexander's birthday last month. A very expensive bottle of scotch that was definitely poisoned, which we had tested and then donated to charity. I smiled. It's the thought that counts. Marcus shook his head, gathering his papers. You two are insane. You know that, right? Probably. I walked him to the door. But it works for us. After he left, I stood in the empty office, taking in the changes we'd made. Family photos on the walls, Alexander's mother, his lost sister Anya, even a few of my own family mixed in. My parents had eventually come around after I'd introduced them to Alexander Volkov, businessman and philanthropist. They didn't need to know about the other side. Some truths were better kept hidden. My phone buzzed a text from Alexander. Garden. Now. Bring champagne. Curious. I grabbed a bottle from the wine fridge and headed outside. The garden had been transformed. String lights hung from the trees, casting everything in warm golden light despite the afternoon Sunday. Rose petals marked a path through the carefully maintained flowers. Flowers I'd planted myself, learning to nurture life in a world defined by death. At the center of it all stood Alexander, wearing a dark suit but no tie, looking relaxed in a way he never had 6 months ago. The weight of constant war had lifted from his shoulders, replaced by something lighter. Hope, maybe. What's all this? I asked, setting down the champagne. A celebration. He took my hands, pulling me close. Do you remember what today is? I thought back through our timeline. So much had happened in such a short time. 6 months since the blood oath? 6 months since you chose to stay. He kissed my knuckles. 6 months since you looked at everything I am, the violence, the danger, the impossible complications, and said yes anyway. It hasn't been easy. No, but it's been real. He reached into his jacket pocket. Which brings me to why I asked you here. My heart started hammering. Alexander. Sophia Russo. He dropped to one knee, and suddenly the garden felt too small, too bright, too full of possibility. 6 months ago, you handed back a counterfeit bill and changed my entire life. You saw through my test and passed one I didn't even know I was giving. You taught me that strength isn't just violence, and power isn't just fear. You walked into hell to save me, held a gun to a mob princess, and negotiated peace when I would have chosen war. Tears were already streaming down my face. You're the best parts of my conscience and the fiercest parts of my courage wrapped into one impossible woman I don't deserve but can't imagine living without. He pulled out a ring, antique platinum with a single perfect diamond, surrounded by smaller stones that caught the light. So I'm asking you, Solnishko, my little son, will you marry me? Will you build this life with me? Legitimate businesses and questionable associates and all? I should have thought about it. Should have considered the implications, the dangers. The fact that marrying into the Bratva meant accepting things I once would have found unthinkable. Instead, I dropped to my knees in front of him, framing his face with my hands. Yes, I said. 1,000 times yes. He slipped the ring onto my finger, perfect fit, like he'd somehow known my size, and then we were kissing, laughing, crying, tangled together in a garden that had witnessed my captivity and now bore witness to my choice. I love you, he whispered against my mouth, more than I thought I could love anything. I love you too. I pulled back to look at him. Even though you're dramatic and overprotective, and probably bought out this entire neighborhood just to set up this proposal. Only 3 houses. He grinned, boyish and happy in a way I rarely saw. The others were already ours. Of course they were. I laughed, giddy with joy and relief, and the simple rightness of this moment. When did you plan all this? The moment you woke up in my hospital bed and told me I was worth everything. He stood, pulling me up with him. I knew then that if you survived, if we both made it through, I was going to marry you or die trying. Very romantic, also very dramatic. I'm Russian. Drama is genetic. He poured champagne into glasses that had appeared on the garden table. Irina must have set them up earlier. To us, to the life we're building from ashes and blood and impossible choices. To us. I clinked my glass against his, and to being insane enough to make it work. We drank, and the champagne tasted like celebration and promise, and the future unfurling before us in all its complicated glory. The wedding was 3 months later, small, intimate, held in the same garden where he'd proposed. My family attended, carefully kept separate from the more questionable guests. Dmitri stood as best man, Irina as my maid of honor. Dawn, Marchetti sent an extravagant gift and his blessing. The other families sent representatives, acknowledging the union and the alliance it represented. I wore vintage lace and carried wildflowers. Alexander wore a dark suit and cried during the vows, something his men would tease him about for years. When the officiant pronounced us married, when Alexander kissed me in front of everyone who mattered, I felt the last piece of my old life finally slip away. Sophia Russo, the waitress, was gone. In her place stood Sophia Volkov, wife, partner, an increasingly integral part of an organization she was slowly helping transform. At the reception, my mother pulled me aside, champagne making her bold. "Are you happy, Mia Figlia?" she asked in Italian. "Truly happy?" "Truly," I promised. "I know this isn't what you imagined for me. Life rarely is what we imagine." She cupped my face, searching my eyes. "But I see something in you now that wasn't there before. A light, a purpose. So even though I don't understand your choices, I support them. I support you. Thank you, Mama." I hugged her tight. "That means everything." She pulled back, wiping her eyes. "Just promise me grandchildren someday, and that you'll teach them to be as strong as you've become. I promise." Later, as Alexander and I danced under the string lights, his arms tight around me, I thought about that promise, about the future we were building, one where his organization focused more on protection than violence, where we used our resources to help immigrants like his employees and trafficking victims like his sister, where we walked the line between legal and illegal but tried to land on the right side more often than not. It wasn't perfect. We still had enemies, still faced threats, still operated in moral gray areas that would horrify most people. But it was ours, built on honesty and sacrifice, and the strange alchemy that had transformed a waitress and a mob boss into partners. "What are you thinking about?" Alexander murmured against my hair. "The future. Our future." I looked up at him. "Think we can actually pull this off? Build something good from such dark foundations?" "We already are, Solnishko." He kissed my forehead. "Every day we choose to be better than we were yesterday. We're building something good. Every life we protect, every family we help, every person we give a second chance, that's our legacy. Not the violence, not the darkness, the light we create in spite of it." "When did you become such a philosopher?" "When I married someone who makes me want to be worthy of her." His hand slid down to rest on my stomach, a gesture of hope, of future possibilities. "So yes, I think we can pull this off. I think we can be happy and good and still survive in this world, as long as we do it together." "Together," I agreed. "Always." The music played on, guests celebrated around us, and somewhere in the city, our organization continued its work, both the legitimate and the less so. But here, in this garden, in this moment, we were just two people who'd found each other against impossible odds and decided to build a life anyway. I'd walked into danger 6 months ago, handed back a counterfeit bill, and passed a test I didn't understand. In return, I'd gained a king, a kingdom, and a purpose I never knew I was searching for. Some people would call it Stockholm Syndrome. Others would call it trauma bonding or moral corruption or a dozen other clinical terms meant to explain away the inexplicable. But I called it love. Complicated, dangerous, morally ambiguous love, but love nonetheless. And as Alexander Volkov held me close, as we swayed together in the twilight of our beginning, I knew with absolute certainty that I'd make the same choices all over again. The counterfeit bill, the dangerous attraction, the impossible rescue, the blood oath, the proposal, all of it, because some people were worth walking through fire for, and I'd found mine. Epilogue. 1 year later, I stood in the same garden, one hand on my swollen belly, watching Alexander negotiate with a city councilman about our latest charity initiative. He was in full businessman mode, charming, persuasive, making legitimate deals that would help dozens of families while also expanding our influence. He'd kept his promise. The organization was cleaner now, more focused on protection and legitimate business than violence. We still had enemies, still faced threats, but the wars had cooled into tense diplomacy. And now, we were having a baby. A daughter, according to the ultrasound. A little girl who would grow up in both worlds, the legitimate and the shadowed, and hopefully take the best parts of both. Alexander caught my eye across the garden and smiled, that soft look reserved only for me. He excused himself from the councilman and crossed to my side, immediately placing his hand over mine on my stomach. "How are my girls?" he asked, impatient. "She keeps kicking." I leaned into him. "I think she inherited your dramatic tendencies." "Good. She'll need them in this family." He kissed my temple. "Have you decided on a name?" We'd been debating for weeks, unable to find something that felt right. But standing there in the garden, where everything had begun, I suddenly knew. Anya, I said softly, if you're okay with it, to honor your sister, to remember what we're building this all for. Alexander's eyes filled with tears. You're sure? I'm sure. I turned in his arms. She deserves to be remembered. And our daughter deserves to know where she comes from, all of it. The darkness and the light. Anya Volkov. He tested the name, smiling through tears. It's perfect, Solnishko. You're perfect. I'm really not. I'm just someone who handed back a counterfeit bill and got lucky. No. He cupped my face. Serious now. You're someone who saw past the test to the man behind it. Someone brave enough to choose darkness and strong enough to bring light. Someone who saved me in more ways than I can count. We saved each other. Fair enough. He kissed me, long and sweet, and full of promise. So let's keep doing that. For the rest of our lives. Deal. And there, in the garden where a waitress had once been held captive and a mob boss had learned to hope, we stood together building our future one choice at a time, one day at a time, one heartbeat at a time. The counterfeit bill was framed in Alexander's office now, a reminder of where we'd started, of the test that had changed everything. Sometimes I'd look at it and marvel at how one moment, one choice to be honest when dishonesty would have been easier, had led to all of this. Love, purpose, family, redemption. Other times I'd just smile and walk away, too busy living our impossible life to dwell on how we'd gotten here. Because in the end, it didn't matter whether our love was born from trauma or fate or simple chance. What mattered was that we chose it. Every single day,